Okay, awesome. Okay, so I think yesterday we had a detailed session. I believe that some of the people online they didn't have the same experience as those in person. We're just going to start with a few activities that we did yesterday and a recap of what we covered. So I'm just going to take like a quick 5-10 minutes, just give a recap, and then what I'd want is that uh, each one of us is actually here for their own startup as well. So yesterday we did a simple activity, which was that we had to map out the experience of when we filed our tax returns. Today we're going to change that challenge a bit and make it apply to your own startup, because what's important is that at the end of this training you guys know specifically what is the problem that you have to tackle and what is going to be the best customer experience that you can build for them, and then you can go out and actually test that as well. So I'll just move backwards in terms of. Thank you. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is that we'll just quickly go through the first two steps in briefly, and then we'll redo this activity, the activity that we did yesterday. Now, I think most of you would already know how to do it, so I don't think that's going to be a challenge. But this time around, everyone is going to be working individually and specifically for their own particular product or startup, right? So yesterday we spoke about the 5 stages of design thinking. The 5 stages include empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Uh, so we covered the first three, which was how to empathize, how to define or define your problem statement, and then how to ideate. So we're going to be doing all of the first three very quickly today in the first session, and in the second session, then we're going to move to prototype and test. So in terms of empathy or how to empathize or do customer empathy mapping, some of the things that basically startups when they're using design thinking, or companies when they're using design thinking, is that they use so one template I've already shared with you. I'll also share with you another template as well that you can also do specifically if you know exactly what customer demographic you're targeting or your product or niche is targeting. So essentially what that is the first thing is, obviously yesterday what we did was charting the experience, but at the same time if you want to do an additional step, which is let's say for example just knowing in depth what your customer thinks, what he says, what he feels, what he does, that's the kind of activity that you can also do as well in the empathy mapping part. All you have to do is simply create a circle. You divide it into 4 parts and you add what the customer thinks, what he says, what he does, and what he feels. And at the same time then based on the demographic that you're targeting, so for context purposes, let's say for example that Daraz wants to target a Gen Z audience. Right now Daraz has a primarily a millennial audience on its app, so we want to target Gen Z and we want to target the female category because they are known to purchase a higher amount of FMCG and fashion products. And we want to build up that buyer base. So then we're going to dig deep into, what the customer that we're targeting, what they think, what they feel, what they do, so that we know we have the exact map, and then we apply the same principles that we discussed over here. So I'm just going to quickly go over them as well. Uh, Sorry about this. I think there's something wrong with the clicker. Sorry, guys. So empathize. Empathy is basically a flair activity, and design thinking. When we talk about it, it's the symbol for design thinking is also an infinity loop. So it's an iterative process. By iterative process, you need to repeat it at every step of the way, irrespective of whether your startup is in its infancy or whether they're at growth stage or whether they've matured as well or plateaued as well. Design thinking can help you with the strategies that you're specifically working towards to test and validate them if they're actually replicable or useful as well. Because sometimes we tend to focus more on the micro aspect. We've created a product and we love that product and we feel like it's going to be the best product out there. But what we realize is maybe it's not the right product market fit. So empathy is actually a player activity, and that's kind of followed by a focus activity. So in the flare activity, you have to think from all possible dimensions in terms of what a potential customer might be feeling or responding to your particular product. So just for context, for example, when I was launching a short video application in Middle East, what we noticed was that when we did the customer empathy mapping over there, we realized that the incentive structure that we'd built for the GCC audience, it wasn't sufficient because GCC is they're high income countries, irrespective of however much incentive we kind of build for them. We wanted to attract high net worth individuals onto our app. So money wasn't a motivating factor for them, but rather it was a fame and recognition. So what we did was we pivoted and we built those fame and recognition tools to kind of get them to engage more with the app. So for context purpose, this is what we talk about that, whenever we're doing or trying to understand the customer, these are the touch points that we're trying to gauge that, how he's going to be responding to your app or why a certain feature isn't being used by that particular user. Amna, can you just tap on the presentation? Yeah. So we discussed charting your experience. We also discussed basically that there was a cancer patient. There was a General Electric employee, and his daughter had cancer. And okay, is the echo coming from there? Yeah, I can hear myself as well, but it's not as bad as this one. So so there was a General Electric employee. His daughter had cancer, and she would be very miserable and very upset every time she'd visit the hospital. And they did a design thinking activity, and he wanted to change things around, right? So when he charted the experience of his daughter, what he realized was that there were things that his daughter felt sad or upset about, and then there were things that the daughter felt happy about or felt excited about. So, for example, the daughter felt sad that she had to go to the hospital. She couldn't go out camping like her brother did. She didn't like the hospital, or she felt it was very cold, or she felt frightened or scared at the hospital. She was happy that she got to spend time with her mom. So you chart the user experience when they're using your particular product, and the product in this particular case is the hospital itself. So what I want all of you to do is that all of you will have the charting your experience sheets on your desks as well. Yesterday we did a small activity which was specifically geared towards tax returns. But today what I want you guys to do is that specifically chart the experience of a user who's using your particular app or your product, right? What are the pain points of that particular user? What does he love about your app? What does he hate about your app? What does he feel like he could change? It could be an app, it could be a product, and at the end user could be the final client that you're actually targeting, right? So individually today, this is going to be more of an individual activity. And specifically for your startup, I want that you guys simply chart the journey. I'll also move forward in terms of just sharing how it was previously felt. So for those of you who have an application, right? So there are a lot of you in the room. What I want you to do is that briefly, like, take 5 minutes Take your app or your business idea to one person in this room. Just share your thoughts and just get their inputs or their updates into what they feel about your product or your service. And then chart their experience, have them try it, give them a demo, and try and see, how they respond to that particular thing. And, you can then utilize the same for your own. So do it like, for with pairs. So I would recommend that you guys just take an offline session for 5-10 minutes. Just connect with each other, pick one partner, and you guys can share your product and your experience, and then fill this particular thing out. And after you're done with this, we're just going to quickly review what we've learned from this. So starting now, let's get to it.
Hello, hello, mic testing. Hello, hello, mic. Hello, hello, mic testing. Hello, hello, mic testing.
Yeah. Um, just wanted to share something. So abhi I was just sitting with a few participants over here, and what I realized was that in both of their cases, a customer doesn't apply directly. They need to apply the charting the experience part on their own selves, right, or on their own startups. तो उन्हें अपना perspective map out करना होगा. Giving you an example. So, what's your name? Sorry. So Maz here, he wants to set up a waste management solution. And along with that, he also wants to generate energy from that. So right now, there are no clients or customers for Maz. The journey he's starting out himself. So he's going to be charting this experience himself. What are the things that are easy for him to do, and what are the pain points or what are the things that trouble him in this particular journey that he's mapped out. Similarly, sir, Gayas. So for Gayas Saab, his challenge is that, so they've got, they're in AI and automation, and sales is a challenge for him, right? So in this particular case as well, they need to map out their own journey. कि इनका अपना अभी sales का channel क्या बना हुआ है, and how they can improvise what are the pain points. So just a food for thought कि ज़रूरी नहीं है if you don't have a you can also start the experience for your own self in terms of building that also. आप अपना भी कर सकते हैं. अपने में तो आपने जो प्रॉब्लम आइडेंटिफाई किए हैं वो तो आपने बेटर कर ही ली है. बिकॉज अदर फैक्टर यही होगा कि यार एक्चुअली उसको प्रॉब्लम मिलना चाहिए कि यार ये प्रॉब्लम है. अगर आपके केस में तो अगर डू यू हैव एन ऐप? नो ही हाँ, तो आपकी तो योर प्रोडक्ट इज देयर, राइट, एंड इट्स ऑलरेडी ऑलरेडी इन माय केस आई विल बी डूइंग इट फॉर माय सेल्फ. या थैंक यू फॉर दैट. Is everyone done? 5 more minutes? Okay. Okay, guys. So we don't have a lot of time, so I just want के हम लोग we move forward to the next step. Okay. So I'm guessing most of you have identified the pain points. जो कुछ लोग अभी भी I think they're still jotting them down. That's fine. But you guys have an idea in terms of what the feedback is on your particular product that you're building. Maybe this particular charting the experience applies to yourself. That can also be the case, but you know the basic journey, the things that make the experience good, or the things that make the experience bad. So we move to the next step, which is define, right? So now you have this basic input. You use this basic input to define your problem statement, and the problem statement needs to be one challenge. I want you guys कि जो अभी आपका इंटरेक्शन हुआ है उसके अंदर यू डिफाइन कि अच्छा व्हाट इज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज दैट योर पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट और सोल्यूशन इज फेसिंग टू काइंड ऑफ तो इधर कुछ स्टार्टअप्स होंगी जो मे बी अभी वो आइडिएशन स्टेज पर हैं, दे हैवंट रियली क्रिएटेड अ प्रोटोटाइप और एमवीपी स्टेज पर नहीं गए. फॉर देम द प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट कुड बी रिलेटेड टू देयर ओन पर्सनल जर्नी, right? But let's define or let's come up with. So this is going to be the next journey. So we did a flare activity. Now we're going to do a focus activity. So we know what the problems are with our product. We have to reframe them and we have to uncover the opportunity areas over there, right? So let's say, for example, we received feedback on user experience, right? कि user experience जो है इस तरह cumbersome है. या for example, we've received feedback कि you're set out to make a product या आपका जो business idea है उसके अंदर आपको upfront जो है cost of capital बहुत ज़्यादा है, right? So you know, okay, you know, this is a problem, but opportunity areas क्या हो सकते हैं, right? So this is something that now you frame your problem statement, and uske baad what I want you guys to do is based on the conversation that you guys had, observe ke what were the comments unke were there any other pain points associated with that the responses. So I'll give you an example. हम लोग जब focus groups करते थे for our app in Jazz, and we used to do it in a usability lab. Now usability lab ke andar we've got cameras installed all around. So even the person's body language, we used to be monitoring that. If the person would stop, we would be monitoring that. His facial expressions, those are things that we would be noticing, right? When they're using an application, because it's important कि हम लोग best in class user experience बना सकें. Infer. So infer के what is something that a person said, उसका possible क्या मतलब हो सकता है. So let's say for example कि यार तुम्हें बड़ा challenge आएगा, ये बड़ा मुश्किल से बनेगा, right? तो इसका मतलब वो you can dissect that and say अच्छा इसके अंदर मेरी cost ज़्यादा है, मुझे इसके लिए बहुत ज़्यादा hardware required होगा, hardware के अलावा मुझे import करना होगा, custom duties होंगी, right? So you infer, make inferences from that. And then insights, what are the actionable things that you can do about it, right? What are those things that you can actually change about your product, your service, your business idea, and improve the customer experience? Or maybe you're the customer yourself, so how do you improve the customer experience for your own self? For example, मेरी जो AI की स्टार्टअप है, सो हमारा एक चैलेंज होता है कि जनरली सेल्स is a big challenge for us. And because we've got a core engineering team, core tech team, most of the workforce, they're not the kind of people के जो जब बाहर जाके sales कर सके, right? So that's an area where we struggle with. Second area that we struggle with is the cost of deployment is too high. So when we go to a client, it takes us the close time of a particular deal or sale can start anywhere between 2 months all the way up to 1 year as well, right? And in the meanwhile, we've got salaries to pay, we've got all of those challenges. So how do we overcome that? And those are the things that we use design thinking to come up with ways in how we can improve our lead time over there, how we can maximize the opportunities. No, it's picking up. So the next part that I want you guys to fill out is the point of view, right? So you met with a person, you shared your business idea with them. What did you notice? What were the, let's say, के demographic user का क्या है जिसको आपने interview किया है? What are the key points about that user? You guys were surprised to notice. So this is where you observe and you figure out, okay, what were the observations? Then inference आ जाएगा यहाँ पर कि what do was there any implied things that you can take away from the conversation that you just had? And then finally, it would be game changing. What would be that one thing which would be game changing for your own particular problem statement जो आपने define किए है? So we're going to be doing this, but additionally, there's a second part to this as well, right? And the second part is insights. So they're going to be multiple things that probably you didn't notice about your particular product, your particular startup, जो feedback अभी आपको मिला है. So उसके अंदर, what were the things that surprised you? What are the things that you did not expect in terms of responses? Try and identify those. And uske andar try to get inferences from that. Did the user, let's say for example के मैंने एक क्रिएटर से बात की मेरे शॉर्ट वीडियो प्लेटफॉर्म के लिए, एंड द क्रिएटर सेड के मेरे लिए पैसा कोई अहमियत नहीं रखता, तो तुम लोग मुझे जितने मर्जी पैसे दे दो, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू कम टू योर प्लेटफॉर्म एज वेल. So the inference or the insight is that my incentive policy is not good enough for that particular creator. As a result, I need to focus on something else. What is that something else that I can do for that creator, right? Second thing is, let's say, for example, new creators, एक और feedback आया कि जी बहुत, it's very difficult to get verified in your platform, right? So what is it that I can do to ensure कि जो user experience है, user journey है, मैं optimize करूँ so that more and more people submit their request for verification in my system. So these are the two activities that we're going to be doing right now. And uske baad, we're going to go again on a player exercise as well. Let's start. So right now, basically two things, right? So so you guys fill out the point of view, right? And the second is the insights that you've derived from that point of view. So for context मैं इधर explain भी कर दूँ. So we're just taking एक जो example या use case हम लोग ले रहे हैं, that is of the cancer patient, and उसका point of view क्या है. So for example, we met the cancer patient. She's a young child. She goes to a hospital. We were surprised to notice that she said that her brother gets to go out for camping and she doesn't, right? We wonder if this means she doesn't feel excited, or this experience sucks the adventure out of her life, right? So what do? We make her hospital scan. It would be game changing if we make her hospital scan experience feel like an adventure for her. That's going to be the game changing thing. So do think about that one game changing thing that you could do for your own particular startup. अगर सिर्फ business idea है आपके पास, right? So game changing क्या होगा? Game changing could be, let's say for example, मेरे पास business idea है, I'm just one person और मैं एक अपना business setup करना चाहता हूँ. It would be game changing if I have the right team for starters, right? Because अगर मैंने कोई I have to build up whatever software banana hai, hardware company banani, I need a CTO, I need to have the right founders in place. Once you have the right founders in place, it would also be game changing to have a board of advisors, for example, right? So these are the things that you guys can add over here. Slide change, sir. The second is you can share your own personal point of view, right? Like for example, the challenge that you face when you go to a client and you're trying to close a deal, right? What is their point of view over there? So let's say you met a client, you were surprised to notice that they loved the product, but they didn't want to give the upfront cost or the cost they found the cost really high.
प्रीवियस क्लास में किया है
Yeah.
अपनी एक्सपीरियंस अपने कस्टमर का यूजर का एक्सपीरियंस रेट किया तो वी आर सिंपली डिराइविंग these points from that particular
From that particular experience, exactly. Is it actually clear? You guys have any questions?
But we have one of these. Should we do, and we're all three different startups.
Yeah.
Should we do it for all skills? Can we do it for all skills?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
do it for all three of
Okay.
them, right? So, and you can also do it yourself as well, right? Because you, agar aap introduce kare you kind of getting the insights, you can do it. The second scenario is, कि, for example, यहाँ पे एक Java because his startup is more advanced. We don't have उनका problem is sales और अभी यहाँ पे जो उनके potential clients हैं ना, ठीक है. So he's already met with those people and he already knows कि यार उनसे मिलने के बाद उनका response क्या होता है. So he knows those pain points कि जो वो raise करते हैं during the sales pitch. ठीक है. So that's what he's going to be mentioning or writing.
Right.
So इसी तरह से it depends on the nature of the product.
We can all do right.
Yeah.
For all three. Like draw line.
हाँ नहीं हम इसको पे लिखते हैं हम इसके ऊपर लिख लेते हैं फिर यहाँ पे हम भी मेमोरीमेंट पता कर लेते हैं ठीक है तीनों का इधर आप चाहे इसके ऊपर लिखें ठीक है जैसे आप मुझसे मिले ठीक है मैं आपका फिल करता हूँ ठीक है ना ठीक है मेट विद फहद ठीक है आप मुझसे कि मतलब आपके स्टार्टअप वाला ये ठीक है आप मुझसे मिले और मेरी
But
रिक्वायरमेंट
it has to be an actual thing, right? It has to be
हाँ
an
हाँ
actual thing.
हाँ
Met with Fahad, and he was met with Fahad, who lived in the US,
in US
and
ठीक है
and his parents lived in Karachi
Karachi, ठीक है
by themselves.
who is in USA and parents are in Karachi ठीक है तो मेरी मेरी भी प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि यार डिस्टेंस है मेरे लिए कि मैं उनके साथ नहीं हूँ मेरे पास ठीक है ना
तो ये तो
एक हाँ
तो ये हम
ये आपने बीमेट के अंदर
ये
आगे
VMAT
किया
है
कि यार
ना,
आप एक
ये
बंदे से
प्रोफाइल हो
हाँ
गया
कि प्रोफाइल हो गया कि यार ये बंदा है और उसकी प्रॉब्लम क्या है यार कि मैं ये तो
हमने प्रॉब्लम बताई क्या हमने प्रॉब्लम करनी है
जो है ना वी वर सरप्राइज टू नोटिस जो सरप्राइज टू नोटिस में क्या प्रॉब्लम क्या आपने आपने प्रॉब्लम क्या हुई कि मतलब अब आप मुझसे मिले एक तो आपने मुझसे मिले
ये
ठीक है
ये
ना हाँ
VMAT
ये
की
बीमेट में
काफी
आ
है।
गया ठीक है ना अब आप मुझसे मिले जब अब आप ये एक्चुअली था क्या मैं आपको बता देता हूँ कि एक्चुअली ये एक इंटरव्यू हुआ था ठीक है ना कल एक हमें वीडियो दिखाई थी उसमें इंटरव्यू था कि जो औरत एक सब्जियाँ बेच रही थी तो उसको बताया गया कि यार सब्जियाँ तो बेचनी तो मैं प्रॉब्लम क्या आती है कहती है यार सब्जियाँ तो मुझे अक्सर ऐसा होता है कि मेरे खराब हो जाती हैं बच जाती हैं फिर मुझे उनको सब्जियों को कम पैसों में भी बेचना पड़ जाता है जिससे मैं खरीद के लाते मतलब मेरी कॉस्ट
Loss
से भी हाँ लॉस में बेचना पड़ जाता है उसने ये सारी चीज़ें सारा सर्वे कर रहा था कि एक्चुअली उसके टच पॉइंट क्या है
ठीक है
डेली खरीदना पड़ता है डेली मार्केट जाना पड़ता है फिर सब्जियाँ भी खराब हो रही है कम पैसे बेचने में जाए पैसे नहीं बच रहे मुझे ठीक है ना और ये शुरू से जर्नी थी कि मैं करती क्या हूँ मतलब शुरू से था कि सुबह में बच्चों को उठाती हूँ बच्चा मेरा स्कूल जाता है ठीक है ना मतलब सारी डिटेल इंटरव्यू मतलब ये नहीं कि आप क्या करते हैं मतलब कहते हैं और हर क्या हाल है कहते हैं कैसे चल रही लाइफ आपकी है मतलब ये इंटरव्यू इस तरह से जब आप करेंगे तो ओपन एंडेड करेंगे यार क्या चल रहा है लाइफ यार तो अब मैं पास बैठा हूँ आप यूएसए में बैठे हुए यार पेरेंट्स की याद आ रही है यार ये मसला हो गया भाई यार उनको वो बैठे हुए आप कौन भेजूँ मैं किसको भेजूँ तो आपने फिर ये आइडेंटिफाई किया कि यार पैसे तो बहुत कमा रहा है अच्छा यार क्या कर रहा है उनके लिए तो ये एक्चुअली इंटरव्यू डायरेक्ट नहीं होगा कि हाँ यार क्या कर लिया आपने ये इंटरव्यू नहीं होगा जैसे ओपन इंटरव्यू और जिंदगी क्या चल रही है और क्या हो रहा है तुम इसके अलावा क्या करते हो अच्छा फिर क्या करते हो तो ये डिटेल्ड इंटरव्यू होगा हम तो बड़ा शॉर्ट करके कर रहे हैं कि यार हाँ कि भाई मैं जो हूँ ना मतलब मैं लोनली फील कर रहा हूँ या मैं क्या फील कर रहा हूँ
एंजाइटी फील करता हूँ बिकॉज माय पेरेंट्स are alone back home and you know I don't know how to take care of them, and I feel anxiety and helplessness also that I can't take care of it.
और हेल्पलेस है, और मैं इस गैप को फुलफिल करना चाहता हूँ, ठीक है ना, कि आई विश आई कुड बी देयर।
Yeah, which I could do.
हाँ, क्योंकि हर कोई यही कहता है ना, हमारे यहाँ यही है ना कि यार पेरेंट्स, कुछ पेरेंट्स के लिए किया है यार, अब हम बाहर आ गए हैं तो अब उनके लिए करना चाहिए, उनके ऊपर जो पैसा लगना लगा दो भाई, कोई टेंशन नहीं है। ऐसे ही होता है ना, बंदा कहता है पैसा उनके लिए तो कमा रहे हैं यार, बच्चों के लिए कमा रहे हैं, उनके लिए कमा रहा है, तो भाई जो मर्जी पैसा लगे, चाहे वो कहना है कि मार्केट है छोटी है, लेकिन जो भी मार्केट है आपकी वो हाई प्राइस है, ठीक है ना। तो ये आपने जो है ना, ये
प्राइस नोटिस ये सही है, ये लगा दे। और इसको अब इससे कुछ इंश्योर करना है।
हाँ,
हो जाएगा तो I would be सही है। So we wanted now these Fahad wants Fahad wants to do something.
हाँ, जैसे मैं वहाँ पर होता कि यार मैं ये काम खुद कर लेता,
Fahad is willing to do take some action,
taking some actions for parents, for his parents, and to make their life easier, ठीक है ना, कि वो ये चाहता है।
भी होता है ना, give back to your parents.
Generally when जब आप बड़े होते हैं, you start earning and you want to give something back to your parents, लेकिन this is वाले साहब आपके provide हमेशा कहते हैं you want it yours, वो दे भी नहीं रहे होते, ये भी लेकिन वो out of proudness भी होता है या out of need भी है नहीं होता, लेकिन फिर भी बच्चों को तो देने का होता है ना कि
ठीक है ना। हाँ, वो ठीक है, इट वुड बी गेम चेंजिंग। अब गेम चेंजिंग क्या होगी कि मेरे लिए गेम चेंजिंग क्या होगी कि भाई मुझे एक ट्रस्ट वर्दी, क्योंकि ट्रस्ट बड़ा मैटर करता है इसमें।
गेम चेंजिंग तो मेरे लिए हुआ ना, मतलब स्टार्टअप के लिए हुआ ना।
नहीं, स्टार्टअप के लिए नहीं हुआ, अभी तो मैं अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ ना, लेकिन स्टार्टअप तो आपका है ही है।
नहीं भाई, ये ऑब्जर्व किसने किया? वी मेट, वी कौन?
नहीं मतलब आपने मेट किया, लेकिन आपने मुझसे मिले ना, तो आपने मेरा एक्सपीरियंस शेयर किया, ठीक है।
आई नो, बट लाइक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू तो
पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू मेरा ही है ना।
इट विल बी गेम चेंजिंग फॉर दैट।
हाँ, एक्चुअली आपने मेरी जिंदगी में क्या, आपका देखें स्टार्टअप आपका बिजनेस है, आप लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल आप क्या कर रहे हैं कि आप ये कर रहे हैं कि यार हाँ ठीक है यार, कोई बंदा भेजना, बदतमीज बंदा भेज दिया, ठीक है, आपका ट्रस्ट वर्दी नहीं है, तो आपने इंटरव्यू किया।
गेम चेंजिंग if Fahad could find a person
हाँ, you can trust, you can get the same type of services
that he would provide
कि यार मैं गाड़ी का दरवाजा भी खोलूंगा, गाड़ी में सुकून से वो है व्हीलचेयर पे लेके बिठाऊंगा। हाँ,
डेडिकेशन, केयरिंग एटीट्यूड।
हाँ, डेडिकेटेड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर,
मॉनिटरिंग भी हो रही है।
हाँ बिल्कुल,
क्या कर रहे हैं, किस तरीके से कर रहे हैं, नॉट मिसिंग आउट ऑफ
game changing if he could find a service which take care of his parents like he would.
हाँ, इसको मैंने लिखा डेडिकेटेड सर्विस प्रोवाइडर फील्स लाइक इन पाकिस्तान, ठीक है, कि जैसे मैं ही खुद पाकिस्तान के अंदर आ गया, ठीक है ना, फील्स लाइक इन पाकिस्तान के बाद। हाँ,
covers everything.
हाँ, कवर इन पाकिस्तान के भाई, ठीक है यार, कि यार ये काम हो गया, उसने मुझे बता भी दिया कि भाई आपका सर काम हो गया, मैं पेरेंट्स को ले आया वहाँ तक, मैं इधर आया, तो पेरेंट्स को नहीं बताएंगे, लेकिन वो बंदा बता देगा फोन पे अवेलेबल है, आज मैं डॉक्टर को लाइन पे लगा हुआ हूँ, ठीक है, तो मैंने ये काम करवा दिया, वो मीटर का ये मसला और तो वो हल करने का मतलब, ये सारा कुछ हो गया।
Guys, I would recommend that you guys move to insights now, so that we can start the next module in next 3 minutes.
Anna, if you can just maybe someone can go around the team. Because the second half is for the next 5 minutes. We can move to. Yeah, so
Is everyone done? Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can have two more minutes and then it's a hard stop.
Right? So this can be a very conversation. Let's say, for example, asking about we started of that particular product. उसके बाद what are the things that surprise in that conversation? So maybe that we did not account for. So जिस समय काफी को बता रहा था कि they've got a app for restaurants. So when they go out into the restaurant now, one of the surprise was that restaurants don't have any social media. And as a result, what they do is that they demand planning for restaurants. Demand planning का मतलब है कि हमें those are the insights that you can derive out of one particular point. वो point बड़ा simple सा है, right? पर उसके अंदर से आगे insights निकल आ जाएगा. I can tell you deeper about. मैंने एक्सपीरियंस शेयर किया, वुड लाइक टू शेयर दैट. इन्होंने मैंने जब उनको अपनी वेबसाइट दिखाई कि उन्होंने देखा एक्सीडेंट होता, ठीक है, उन्होंने किया कि यार ऐसा, क्योंकि बिकॉज इनका प्रॉब्लम था कि यार मैं जाके देना पड़ेगा, ठीक है. उन्होंने वेबसाइट विजिट कर ली, postman.tk है ना, और कोई कंपैरिजन एट द वन वेबसाइट, ठीक है ना. ठीक है, तो पहले ये आए और इन्होंने इनको था कि यार मुझे जाना पड़ता है शिपमेंट ड्रॉप करने के लिए, बाकी ड्रॉप करने के लिए. फिर मैंने कहा बुक तो है लेकिन मुझे पिकअप नहीं है. शुरू में बोला कि यार मुझे पिकअप नहीं. फिर अगले पेज में हाँ अगले पेज पिकअप आ रहा है. तो ये वेरी गुड लर्निंग, इट्स वर्थ सिटिंग हियर. तो मुझे हुआ कि यार मुझे फौरन नोट किया मैंने, यार इसको मैं पिकअप भी करूँगा. तो बस मैं अपने जितनी भी मार्केटिंग कर रहा हूँ उसको पिकअप लिख रहा हूँ कि यार फ्री पिकअप, दो स्टेप पिकअप. लेकिन आपने जब कोड के बाद जब बुकिंग है ना, बुकिंग का आपको पता नहीं चला कि यार ये बुकिंग का मतलब इसके बाद पिकअप आएगा. तो मैंने उसे कर दिया कि बुकिंग को भी साथ पिकअप भी करना है, कि बुक पिकअप. एग्जैक्टली, है ना. बुक पिकअप इज द की लर्निंग के हिसाब से मुझे बड़ा सरप्राइज हुआ कि यार मुझे, बिकॉज मुझे तो लग रहा था कि यार बुकिंग व्हेन यू हैव बुकअप देन यू हैव टू अरेंज फॉर पिकअप. तो आपको हुआ कि नहीं यार बुकिंग परेशान हो गया पिकअप नहीं है, और उसके बाद आपने मतलब माइट भी आप शायद जाते भी ना कि मुझे तो बुक करानी नहीं, ठीक है ना. तो माइट भी जाते नहीं. कस्टमर ड्रॉप ऑफ है, हाँ वहाँ पर आ रहा होगा. बिल्कुल ऐसी हो रहा है कि मैं बेच रहा हूँ कि मैंने मैं कहता मैं चेंज करवाता हूँ. फिर बड़ा थिंग भी है. It's worth attending. And any other observation that you have? तो एक तो ये था कि जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल पिकअप के, हाँ फिर भी जैसे कि इन्होंने शिपमेंट भेजी थी यूएस से, ठीक है ना. तो फॉर मी इट्स यूएसए, ठीक है ना. फॉर हिम इज द यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका, ठीक है, तो मेरी वेबसाइट के ऊपर बाकी सारी कंट्रीज का पूरा नाम लिखा हुआ था, लेकिन यूएसए का सिर्फ यूएसए लिखा हुआ था। जैसे अल्बानिया का पूरा ALBA लिखा हुआ है,
यूनाइटेड अरब एमिरेट्स लिखा हुआ था,
लिखा हुआ था, हाँ हाँ,
लेकिन यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स के अंदर
यूनाइटेड
सिर्फ
स्टेट्स में सिर्फ यूएसए लिखा हुआ था,
USA
ठीक है ना। तो ये मेंशन किया कि यार ये भी इसके अंदर होना चाहिए। फिर कलर थीम इन्होंने बताया कि यार कलर थीम जो है मतलब इट शुड बी रीडेबल ना, इतना होना चाहिए कि कैची हो, आई कैची हो, तो आई कैची नहीं है तो कलर थीम इस तरह से होता है, आई कैची हो।
Very interesting. I think इसके अंदर एक और चीज and you probably आप note भी कर रहे होंगे, so because ये he was checking out the product specifically, उसके अंदर there would be things that you value because आपने बनाई है,
हाँ।
right, but there would be things that he's not picking out.
हाँ,
So that's very important for you from a user interface perspective कि क्या चीजें हैं that you can improve in this part. So I think these can be analyzed surprises and then उसका आगे insights जो हैं वो क्या हो सकते हैं? Let's say for example the surprise is that this coverage effectively is not there, right? And insight could be that user experience is still being resolved for the user. Second is, for example, the end destination needs to be visible because the user could not find.
और यूजर को सोल्यूशन मिला ही नहीं ना, मतलब यूजर ने तो पिकअप चाहिए था।
So I think we'll just move to the next section. We'll quickly go through this. We'll take a short break. After we come back from the break, we'll complete this activity, and then after that, we're going to do ये जो आप you guys are probably wondering कि यार ये spaghetti sticks और marshmallow क्यों पड़े हुए हैं? So we'll be doing this activity as well, working in teams specifically. So yeah. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. Do you guys need a break? Yeah, you're okay with continuing the session. Okay, great. Awesome. Huh? No, we're not. So ideation is again a flair activity, right? And ideation is a very important step because this is where you actually जो आपने observe किया है, जो आपने problem statement define की है, जो आपने customer empathy mapping की है, ideation के अंदर you actually build the framework or build the solution. So it's very important that you think from all particular dimensions here what could be the best possible solution in a given challenge and in the given observations जो आपने note down किए हैं specifically, right? So one of the things that I don't know कि यहाँ पर किनको इस तरह का feedback मिला है, but you probably must have noticed कि in your interaction अभी तो this is a controlled environment, you haven't gone out there in the market. Ideally, design thinking is a more longer term process. Companies do it over the course of 1 month as well, because when they've got the, charting the user experience, they don't just do it with one person, they do it with multiple people from different demographics and see what their behavior or what their response is. And then after they do that, they create the problem statement. One thing that they've identified is the biggest problem. And uske baad, then they move on to, they probably, and during this journey, they also realized कि यार ये चीज मैंने अपनी तरफ से तो बहुत जबरदस्त बनाई थी, but what I realized was कि जब मैं टेस्ट करने के लिए गया या मैं मार्केट में फीडबैक लेने के लिए गया तो लोगों को नहीं पता था इसके बारे में, या ये इम्प्रूव हो सकती है, या इसके अंदर यूजर जर्नी सही नहीं है, या there is something that I can tweak about this that would help me specifically. Whether that's sales, whether that's marketing, whether that's a product, whether that's user interface, it could apply to everything. So we need to celebrate failure. It's fine. You guys, startups, the entire premise of startups is that they fail fast. जितना आप टाइम लगाएंगे ना फेल करने में, उतने आपके chances of going down are going to increase. So you need to test, literally like sprints के अंदर जो है आपको ये test करने हैं. And you have to, make it a habit of doing these every month. हम लोग जब भी कोई even bigger companies, Jazz हो गई, Daraz हो गई, Baikia हो गई, whenever they're testing out, launching products, वो पायलट करते हैं, पायलट के अंदर they've got they find out अच्छा यार ये चीज़ नहीं चल रही है, इसके अंदर ये चैलेंज आया है, they go back to the drawing board, they redo it, they launch it again, they do a pilot again, right? Or they tweak it and then they see the results. They observe, they see the results, they go back out, they go out there in the market, and then they go back to the drawing board again. So it's a continuous process. कल मैं ट्विटर के ऊपर स्पेसिफिकली देख रहा था, किसी ने स्टीव जॉब्स की शेयर की हुई थी. नाउ स्टीव जॉब्स वाजंट एन इंजीनियर, एंड किसी ने उससे पूछा कि यार आप दुनिया की टॉप टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनी के सीईओ हैं, you don't have any tech experience, how can you scale this? तो उसने कहा everything boils down to user experience. तो अगर कस्टमर या यूजर एक्सपीरियंस जो है वो बेस्ट इन क्लास, टॉप क्लास नहीं है आपका, the chances of you failing are going to be quite high. I mean, concepts like Airbnb, concepts like Kareem, they were out there before as well. It's not like they were the first people to do it. But what did they do differently? It was how they framed it, how they built the processes, how they built the structures, the user interface, how they were interacting with the users. Kareem different markets में गया, उन्होंने localize कर दिया अपना. Airbnb का user interface बहुत simple है. So these are the things that kind of made them stand out. So fail fast. And you might be thinking कि यार नहीं मैंने ये सारी I have to control everything. The entire premise of startups is कि आप chaos के अंदर operate कर रहे हैं. So startup founders and you guys will realize this. It's a journey where you have to be comfortable with the chaos. It's not, ये कभी नहीं होगा कि you're not going to be feeling कि यार ये बहुत बिल्कुल structure हो गया है, we're working like a multinational. That's the thing that actually changes the dynamics of a startup compared to MNC or a large organization, because chaos ke you've got the agility, right? So you can blitz scale through chaos as well, and at the same time you can fail fast as well through that. So let go of control. It's very important that you guys realize, okay, it's fine, it's not the end of the world agar koi cheez nahi chal rahi. Pivot quickly. That's the point of design thinking, because आप मार्केट में गए हैं, मार्केट में रिस्पॉन्स नहीं आ रहा, यूजर ने कहा कि यार ये चीज तो मुझे चाहिए ही नहीं, it's okay, you can pivot. And that's the bottom line over here. So what we're going to do is कि आप you guys we did 2 activities, right? And वो 2 activities जो थी, we charted the experience. After charting the experience, we tried to understand the point of view and insights हमने derive की. Insights के बाद ideation के अंदर what's important is that you're probably at that stage where you can create a concept जो आपने एक challenge या problem statement या 2 problem statements आपने identify की कि यार ये हैं, उसका एक concept बनाए. And what is the product service name, target user कौन है, किसको target कर रहे हैं, intended impact क्या होगा आपके business के ऊपर उसका, if you implement that change. And then finally, what is the one key function that the change that you're implementing is performing in your particular business. So we're going to be doing this. And along with that, so this is something that we can do as a team as well, right? And feel free to ask around with people as well, which is the yes and activity. So concept तो आ गया, and आपने you probably think यार बहुत जबरदस्त concept है, but you go to other people and you say कि यार ये तो अच्छा है और मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, right? So that's where the yes and that's where that brainstorming comes in, right? So what's important is that over here we ask other people, okay, अच्छा ये मैंने concept किया, what are the other things I can do, and get one idea from one person in this team. So try to get 3 more additional ideas as well on the problem statement that you've defined. And finally, I think एक जो गलती बहुत सारे startups करते हैं, which is कि funding नहीं है तो they don't think big or dream big. And which is why this is also a player activity, because let's say you've secured, the best funding round in Pakistan. What are you going to do with all of that money, right? So what would you do if you had $1 million? What is the one thing that you do, right? If you could do magic, or what would you do that would get you in trouble with your boss, or with, let's say, with an investor, or with anyone else? But the point of this activity is the big ideas the game-changing ideas in your business, you jot them down. So we're just going to be doing this. Again, if you guys have any questions, you can come to me as well and we can discuss. Any questions? So we'll start from here. So describing your concept, right? अभी आपने so we went through the initial process. उसके बाद हमें insights भी आ गई, point of view भी आ गया, journey भी आ गई कि journey कैसी है, ठीक है? तो अब हम concept हमारा क्या है, हम क्या करेंगे? What would we do differently now? ठीक है? And उसको put that out there in a structure. And following that, so that one idea that you feel like it's going to fix it, that's still not enough, right? So you can just go around, speak to people and ask them, Acha, what are additional things that you can do? So that yes, and is a brainstorming activity. And finally, it's the what would you do if you had $1 million? That's something that you can do on your own as well, right? Okay, what are the big ideas? What are the big things that you can add over here? That would be game changing for your business with no limitation of thought as well.
in 3, 2, in 3, 2, 1. The game begins in 3, 2, 1.
best approach over here is the same approach as kindergartners, essentially, right? Where you unless you've scaled and you're already a billion dollar startup founder, your chances of success significantly improve. But otherwise, you know, test, test, continue testing. So that's the bottom line over here. I'll just quickly go on the prototyping with a short video that I want to show you guys. And after that, also a demonstration of how design thinking was used to create one of Pakistan's largest app by subscribers and users. So I'll just share what the design thinking methodology was, which was used for that.
What is the prototype?
Can you guys hear?
The prototype is an experimental model of an idea. It's a way.
May I have the mic?
No, it's not working for some reason.
Yeah, can we?
Mic off हो गया.
जब आसान बैठा
हाँ?
लेकिन ना तो हम भाई को जाना Okay, for some reason it's just video playing only. I think you've shared your Zoom screen only. It's been
इस पे रूम चल रहा है साउंड इसमें लगा हुआ है उसमें नहीं लगा हुआ है समझ में नहीं आ रहा है
okay, ये तो हमें इस पे चलानी पड़ेगी क्योंकि ये साउंड इस पे लगा है. Oh my God, I was you have a USB port here.
It's okay. I think we'll just play the video.
ये नहीं चल रहा है
You find it on the internet as well. Rapid prototyping.
What is a prototype? The way I think about it, a prototype is an experimental model of an idea. It's a way to give our ideas a presence that we can put in front of somebody else to see if our idea has value. As a design researcher here at Google, I put ideas in front of people who use our products all the time. Is your idea ready to be put in front of people? Yes. In fact, in this video series, we'll share with you several types of prototyping methods that you can use to get your ideas in front of people as soon as possible. Now, how will you know when it's right to show your idea to someone else? The fidelity of your prototype should match the fidelity of your thinking. So don't be afraid to share your prototypes early and often to get feedback to guide your next product design decision. We put together a series of 3 videos to introduce you to various techniques we use at Google. There's sketching and paper prototyping, digital prototyping with form and principle, and native prototyping. So to get things started, let's take a look at how teams at Google take an idea in their head and make the first stroke of the pen on paper.
Hi, my name is Melissa Powell, and I'm on Google's Developer Relations team. I get to work with designers, developers, and entrepreneurs both inside and outside of Google to solve some pretty tough design challenges.
And I'm Miriam Sheikh, a senior user experience designer at Google. I design ad experiences to make them better and simpler to use for products such as Google Search, AdWords, and DoubleClick. And we're here to talk to you about sketching and paper prototyping. I often work in digital prototyping and graphic design tools to create high-fidelity mocks like these. But even at a high-tech company like Google, we generally start the design process with something that looks a lot more like this. By the end of the video, you should feel confident knowing when to use sketching and paper prototyping, 4 types of sketches we commonly use at Google, and 3 primary benefits of paper prototyping. Sketching is a fundamental part of the design process and can help you make key decisions about what to design. It can be as simple as drawing on a piece of paper or even a post-it note. Or you can use any of these common materials to create a more realistic sketch and share your sketch with others. Sketching can be used in nearly any stage in the product design process. You can use different types of sketches depending on who you're working with and what you need to communicate. Sketching is great when thinking through all of the initial ideas running through your head. You can sketch to outline the steps in a user flow, explore a variety of layouts, and to show the basic app structure, or what we commonly call a wireframe. Once you've agreed on the rough layout, we usually create higher fidelity sketches with details such as buttons, images, and color. At this point, you may decide to transfer your sketches to your digital tools, but the more you can flesh out your ideas on paper, the faster you'll move on your computer. During mid-development and even post-launch, you may need to rethink your design and want to quickly visualize new ideas. So you might bust out a pen and paper even if you already have high-fidelity digital prototypes. It can be faster to communicate and validate your new ideas through sketches before you have to make those changes to your digital prototype.
In addition to sketching, another low-fidelity option is paper prototyping. Today I'll cover how paper prototyping can help you think through key user interactions, use color more purposefully, and visualize elevation and shadows. And let me give you some practical paper prototyping pro tips. As you can see with the sketch that Miriam created, it's easy to visualize the user flow, but it's a little bit more difficult to understand the user interactions between the screens. You can use your paper prototype to simulate interactions. For example, if we look over here, I've pre-created some paper prototypes, and we can explore what happens when I click on an individual button. Here we have the floating action button, or the quantity, and we can actually have it drop down. And see what happens when a new screen appears and we're looking at the checkout cart. We can also select the address and a pop-up window will appear. To avoid carrying around your paper prototype from meeting to meeting, record these interactions with your phone, or you can create an animated GIF by taking a few stills and throwing it into Google Photos' Auto Awesome feature. It's just easier to share your ideas with people that way. Another pro tip is to print out existing screens. Instead of redrawing all the common elements over and over, the goal here isn't to test your arts and crafts skills, but to explore the interactions and natural transitions between the screens. And since we're working with paper, you can also explore different principles of material design, such as color, elevation, and shadows. Material design is Google's visual design language that synthesizes classic principles of good design with the innovation and possibility of technology. And at the end of the day, it was inspired by the study of paper and ink. So why not get back to basics using paper and ink? A good place to start is to think through purposeful and consistent use of colors. The material design spec has a lot of great information about selecting hues and saturations, so be sure to explore the full material design color palette at the link in the description below. And be purposeful with your use of color, not just on one screen, but throughout the app. In general, we recommend choosing one primary color, which is most commonly used for components such as the app bar or background, and one or perhaps 2 accent colors for anything that you want to grab the user's attention, such as the fab, or to indicate that a tab has been selected. Paper prototyping can help you think through your purposeful use of color because as a practical paper prototyping pro, you'll want to reuse the colors throughout the app. Not only is that easier, but when this translates to your final product, it will reduce visual noise for the user, making navigation much easier. And because we're working with physical materials, be sure to make note of how the layers form shadows. Of course, we have the x-axis and the y-axis. With material design, we're encouraged to consider and make use of the z-axis, an elevation of each sheet. You can read more about elevation and shadows in the material design spec, linked in the description below.
As you saw, you can use different types of sketching throughout the product design cycle to help you visualize and communicate your ideas in a lightweight fashion with user flows, rapid sketches of many layout options, wireframes, and detailed sketches with images and text.
And paper prototyping is one technique that can help you think through key user interactions and explore material design principles, such as purposeful use of color, elevation, and shadows.
Now that you've visualized your ideas on paper, you can shop them around with your teammates or users to validate your assumptions and make smarter design decisions. You can translate your sketches into higher fidelity digital mocks to build a robust prototype. To learn about making a digital prototype, check out the next video in this series.
We chart their experience, we try to understand their point of view, and then we also get insights from what their point of view might mean for us and for our business. And we need to translate that into design. So one app where we implemented this was, now just for context, the challenge was that everyone prior to this activity happening in Jazz, everyone in Jazz always had a point of view or an opinion about, we don't like the design, we don't like the color, maybe you could have done this differently. There was no science behind how things were done, right? If a design looks fine, it looks fine, that's how it appears in the app. Over here, this was more of a process where we involved all the stakeholders from all the different departments, and we asked them to join us for a design thinking workshop. And we got their feedback, and this was the initial or the final paper prototype, which most of the people agreed with, that this is the basic structure, the layout that it should appear. We created low fidelity prototypes from there, mid fidelity prototype, and then following that, this is the final version of the app. So if any one of you is a Jazz user or uses this app, this would be the final version that you're seeing right now. And then once you've got the final version in place, right, for any new features or any new pages that you're adding to your app as well, you can go back to the design thinking methodology and then test it out again and follow the same principles. So you've got your concept in place. This is something that we've worked on before. After you've got the concept in place, you have to test the assumptions. You have to test the assumptions in that concept. So, you know, in terms of prototype, right? The time to learn is over here. Generally, a lot of mistakes, and it's not only about startups. Sometimes big companies also make these mistakes. They implement a product. They feel like, you know, this is the best version that they can have. And then cost of error, obviously, it's also in terms of time and also in terms of money. So the longer that you spend and you've been out there in the market, but you've got the incorrect user experience for the users, or you don't have the right layout, the cost might be too much for you. And it would eventually impact your operations or your ability to scale as well, right? So all of these are extremely important, and you don't want, so 18 minutes ka time humne jo marshmallow test tha uske liye diye diya, because sometimes you're not going to have additional time. VCs are not going to wait. अगर आपको कोई investor है और उसने आपको कुछ milestones दिए हुए हैं, he might even plug or pull the plug on the additional funding that he's promised you if you haven't met those milestones. Same is the case with grants. I feel like a lot of startups also rely on grants, and grants are also based on timelines. So if you don't meet the timelines, you know, you're in for a lot of payback that you have to give to those grant institutions. So have to be careful about it. What I'll do is that I'll also share some other additional material as well that will allow you guys to basically test out your products for prototyping, right? And use these. So these are basically, this is like you could say a structure where that you can use to apply design thinking anywhere, right? So what I'll do after this session is that I'll share with the NIC team the flight guide that the Stanford D School prepared, and this entire deck is also from Stanford D School as well, in terms of how to implement design thinking. in your own startups and businesses. I'll just quickly go on to test as well, right? So okay, so test is again, so basically prototyping was a focus activity. Test is again a player activity. And test is a player activity because you again you have to do empathy mapping. You have to go back to the customers and you have to get their feedback as well. We're almost done.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So again, I mean, testing is empathy. We've got some roadmaps. I'll share that structure with you guys as well. So in terms of the design technology, consider the infinity loop. And all top technology organizations across the world, they follow the infinity loop for all of their tech teams, product teams, marketing teams, you name it. Whenever there's a challenge, wherever you need to pivot, and in the startup life cycle, you have to develop that resilience to understand, okay, this is maybe where I need to pivot. And we've got some big examples as well. We've got the example of Airlift that initially started from a mass transit company, went on to quick commerce company. So those pivots are important. Otherwise, you can fail really quickly, or you can it cannot work out. So we've got again, it's about charting the experience. We've got a set of experiences as well. So the reason they're here is because you want to feel like आपका जो process है जिसके through भी whether it applies on your own life, whether let's say for example, I think we had someone who was just brainstorming different ideas in terms of what can be implemented, right? So from that point of view, from that journey, you can apply it in your own journey as well, and then try to overcome or find out solutions to.
मेरे complaints आ रहे हैं सबने मैं इसमें लगा रहा हूँ एक सेकंड इसको
तो इसमें लगानी होगी, I don't know इसमें लगेगा या नहीं.
अपने आप को म्यूट करना और ये लगा.
This is muted.
I don't know, like mute in the sense that
Hello.
people can hear you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like have people comment on it. Right, and follow up with them, seek stories, get all the information that you can about the user experience, user journey, and then you've got essentially this sheet which you can use to evaluate your concept, right? So does your prototype have a singular feature? Did you conduct your test with the user in a real context? So real contexts are important. I'll give you guys an example. Jazz ने जिस वक्त अपनी design lab बनानी थी, हमारे पास बहुत space था अपने office के लिए भी, and we could have built it over there. But then the challenge is that there's a perceived or actual bias as well when people are coming into the Jazz office for a focus group. So we wanted to create it in a neutral setting as well, because we wanted to eliminate as much biases as we could, right? Real context is important because you need to actually get real feedback from real users of your product, right? So hamare context, for my this we have a Vision AI startup. So our teams worked day and night, and we came up with a really good, face recognition, attendance management solution. And it was deployed as well with some really large clients in the Middle East. But our challenge was user acquisition. We couldn't get new clients, right? So we delved deeper into it and we tried to understand. We're like, where are we losing out? Like, we feel like this is something absolutely brilliant. We're saving 1.5 2 hours of time for companies. They can do easy attendance management, and we realized that in terms of cost saving, it was marginal, right? So what we thought was our $1 million idea did not have that kind of potential in that setting that it was applied to, right? So then we had to come up with other alternate avenues where the same could be applied, because आपका शायद product जो है उसके use cases बहुत सारे हो सकते हैं, right? Underlying जो business fundamentals हैं, they could be the same, but the use cases could be different. So it's important that you test out with the user in a real context, not hypothetically as we did over here. यहाँ पे हमने एक hypothetical scenario किया. And then also question yourself, does the concept that you've come up with, does it perform that function that you actually built it for? Because sometimes you'll also feel that maybe just adding to the aesthetics is not performing that function as well, right? So just to give you guys an example over there, for example, हमने gamification tactic दराज के अंदर शुरू किए जो coin missions थे. And coin missions का objective ये था कि we increase stickability and all of that. But what we realized was that they weren't performing in terms of conversion as we actually wanted them to. Right, so we went back to the basics. We removed the coin missions altogether, and we came up with other gamification tactics because we realized that it's not performing the function that it's supposed to do. And whether जो अब हमने finally the fourth question is कि जो हम value उसके अंदर देख रहे हैं, was it perceived or is it actually real, right? So is it actually making a difference for the people? So that's where the testing comes about, right? And there's a test debrief as well, right, that you can actually follow, where you can add your learnings as well. Once you've made your prototype and when you go out to test, you can add your learnings over here. So in terms of when we started this session, we spoke about the General Electric story. An engineer at General Electric, his daughter had cancer, and they tried to use design thinking into implementing something different which would alleviate the concerns that her daughter felt about going to the hospital. So in terms of the outcome, this is what they did. They completely changed the theme and they made it a jungle adventure where the MRI machine was completely transformed. And they had a very childlike setting, so children would think that they're actually going to a playland or some similar kind of place. And they changed the layout, and as a result, the findings of that were really good because kids felt less uncomfortable, less afraid, and they were happier to actually go and look forward to their hospital visits. So in terms of the infinity loop that I mentioned before, right? So consider that you've done this process. You have to essentially repeat it over and over again, right? And you could also be empathize, ideate, prototype, test, so it could also be like you can use some steps of this journey as well, right? Go over them again and again, or you could do the entire process again and again just to figure out that you've got the right product in place, right? Because अगर आपका अपना पैसा लगा हुआ है, अपना टाइम लगा हुआ है, आपने अपनी एनर्जी लगाई हुई है, you want to make sure that you've got a fundamentally sound business, and design thinking is something that can really help you guys along the way. That's it. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll be sharing some notes. Flight guide जो मैं share कर रहा हूँ at the end of it. So essentially, this flight guide I'll be sharing with all of you, where you guys can use this to create your own design challenges, and understand and go through the same process over and over again for your business and for your start. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, thank you everyone for being here, and I would request all of you to please come here. ताकि हम एक group को ले लें.
I'm particularly sad about the online participants. I think they how are you? Yeah, there was tower गिरा नहीं है अभी तक. एक मतलब ऐसे वाला गिरा चलो.
Okay, so please, लंबे लोग पीछे ले जाएं. इसका best part हमारी नजर में तो महसूस होगी. तो साउंड बंद नहीं करेंगे. Thank you everyone for being here. Another announcement. Coming Thursday, हमारा online session है, please NIT मत आ जाएगा.
It was a pleasure session with you. Thanks for all the time. Since you have a great experience for doing the RAS and we are trying to adopt that thing, can we spend some time offline?
Absolutely, would love to do that.
Application आ जाए तो मैं पहले आपको application दिखाना चाहूँगी. So we have done this prototype part, testing किया, final version आ गया. Then I want to have a word कि आप क्या
Sure.
Thanks so much.
जी मुझे बताइए आप जैज में होते हैं या आप
Yeah, I work in jazz for about 5 years. Yeah, actually I joined the RAS because सीन ये था कि कोविड के अराउंड कोविड टाइम
ये आप दराज की बात What is it?
Yeah, it's full stack
And of the neural linguistics.
Yeah. So that's specifically
किस नाम से है?
S-Tech topic है.
And this is based here?
Based in Islamabad.
Are you from? अच्छा ये जो आप बता रहे थे ये जो डिजाइन कर रहे थे सो ये जैज वाला है
अच्छा डिजाइन लैब के ऊपर अभी एनआईसी को मैं एक मुफ्त का मशवरा दे रहा हूँ सो उसका मशवरा ये है कि अगर आप लोग चाहते हैं कि आपकी स्टार्टअप्स भी डिजाइन लैब इस्तेमाल कर सकें इस्लामाबाद सो यू कैन सिंपली रीच आउट टू इग्नाइट और इग्नाइट से रिक्वेस्ट करें कि हमारी स्टार्टअप्स को भी टेस्ट करें फैसिलिटी तो शेयर है फायदा होगा
एक और चीज ये
फैसिलिटी शेयर है
So it does completely made it, but they made it for NIC Islamabad, so that's why it's kind of
initiative
can you please airdrop me the presentation that you were showing?
Yeah, I'll share all the details. और इसकी कुछ और many resources हैं that I'll be sharing with you that you can share.
ये ट्रांसफर एफर्ट्स टू
यार काफी हैवी हैं
तो मुझे भी वो
आपको भी
थैंक यू
तो मैं यही आ रहा था कि हम ये वो लैब को लेवरेज कर सकते हैं
ये वो मैंने एक तरीका actually
So let's say अगर यहाँ से नहीं होता तो वैसे
हसन
तो assess करते हैं कि क्या
So they have a person who's trained to use that equipment. That person actually focus होगा आपको ने कराया होगा जो टेस्ट कर रहा होगा और उसके बाद यदि मान लीजिए इतना करके जब कैसा पहुंचने की बात नहीं हुई